Greetings. Welcome to TAMS GPA, all about helping students achieve academic excellence and using videos to provide that necessary support as you go along that journey. Today, I'm doing a presentation on the use of the World Wide Web for searching and for research purposes. And for the information literate and the tech savvy, you may find that this topic is trivial, but I have found that there are students who overly rely on the World Wide Web, and keeping in mind that you must maintain academic writing standards, I find that without applying critical thinking skills, students end up presenting substandard papers, and again they become frustrated when they get low marks, even though they felt they would have invested so much time and energy in preparing the assignment or going about the whole research, going through that research journey to gather the information. So I decided to just plug a few terms, and again I remind you, use it as a refresher, because by at least the beginning of your second year, you would have been introduced to the essentials of using the internet, specifically for the academic journey, and you will also be introduced to those necessary terms that would help you along when you are using the internet. So this is not a course on information literacy per se. What I'm doing is merely extracting the important areas for you to keep in mind as you go along. So first off, you would notice that there is separate mention of the internet and the World Wide Web because they are different. The internet really is that vast, that mechanism that allows you to connect. It provides connectivity throughout via different platforms, and it's about online communication. So really the World Wide Web is a subset of the internet. Now we don't say the World Wide Web, really, we don't say that anymore. We talk about www. But again, it's really just about pointing or helping you to pull out that necessary information as you proceed to research and to prepare your assignments. So search engines, what are they? Search engines are the means by which you gather the information or source the information in the first place. And think of a search engine as a finder, and you are using the keywords to get it or have the search engine gather that information. And really search engines use two mechanisms. They use a web crawler and they use algorithms, or what we term as variables. They will use those two mechanisms to draw the information from the internet. So think of search engines, Google, Yahoo, and Bing. They are different in the way they go about searching for that information. And just a little note about Yahoo. Yahoo is a search engine, but they employ the mechanisms or the technology to do that search. They employ that or outsource it to Microsoft, and Bing is also Microsoft. So you can well imagine that if you were to do a search now, if you type in any word in a search bar in Google and then you test it with putting in that search in Yahoo and then Bing, you will get different search results. Also, what you may find featured prominently on the first search page can differ among the three. Again, these three are not the only search engines, but they are the search engines that we commonly use or we have grown up to know as the primary search engines. Keyword search would be the method by which you seek the information or have the search engine gather that information for you. So go back to your information literacy class when you would have had to use parameters for searches. For example, if you just type the word domain in a search bar, you will get endless results on domains, and you will get endless interpretations of the word domain, because domain can refer to the internet as part of a URL. We'll get to that shortly. Domain can also mean a place of rule if you were to go by a dictionary meaning, and domain can also refer to a particular term in psychology when talking about the brain. So using just that word as an example, if you were to just type the word abuse, if you are doing a search on domestic abuse, there is no way you can yield any results, positive results or specific results to domestic abuse if you just type abuse. I'm saying that Google, Yahoo and Bing will give you different web pages available on abuse. And the abuse is generic, or it is widespread and not just to include or restrict to domestic abuse. Content specific would be about a particular web page that provides information. For example, if you type in domestic abuse, you may find in your search results that a particular website provides a wealth of information on domestic abuse. Again, you get to a URL and read in particular pages. But for now, I'm just pointing out what happens when you plug in a word in your search bar and send the World Wide Web to get the information for you. So the term SERPs would be your search engine results page. Why is this important in research? Because the more you search and the more you are activated to go to a particular page, is the greater the likelihood of losing your search results. And then students again get frustrated because they wish to find that particular page, or when it's time to cite the source, you have done so much navigating on the World Wide Web that you cannot possibly remember where you got the information from. And while there is the history page, you can go into your history. You can well imagine that if you did not save your search engine results page, or at least take a note of it, then you become overwhelmed as you go along. And keeping in mind, in a previous presentation when we talked about going about the research process, that as you start to gather information, you take notes simultaneously. This would be one of the reasons why you take notes. About the page content, which is somewhat different from a content-specific page, the page content really is about that search results page that provides you with, as you look through the different results, you would find content that you can easily glance at and determine if it's relevant to your research. So for example, you are doing an assignment on domestic abuse, and you type in domestic abuse, and you look at the search engine results page. The page contents can easily tell you what is relevant. If you were to see the first 10 results on domestic abuse coming from newspapers, you may click because it will point you to perhaps the most current incident. It will point you to a series of newspaper history on domestic abuse. Page content will also guide you as to whether it's a credible page, because you will then find that the domain or the URL gives you indication that it is insightful information. But we'll get to that when we look at the types of web pages. Just to say that the page content, when you see .org or .com, this is where we get into understanding the URL But you remember again when doing your information literacy course, or when you would have been introduced to your librarian and going about using the World Wide Web for gathering information, you will be reminded that there's also guidance on accessing or referencing a URL for information that you are going to use for your assignment. So URL, as we mentioned it, is the source of the information, or directs you to sourcing that information. And just as you would use a URL is really an address, just as you would have your address in an envelope, and there are different components of your address to determine how do we find where you live. So if you were to just put your street name, it will still be difficult, or it would be probably impossible to find you because we don't know what area, and there may be many streets in different districts, or there may be several districts bearing the same street name. Just as with the World Wide Web, you type domestic abuse, and if you did not have the URL, you will be directed to many pages, and in any case, the URL will help you to zero in on what is the best page to source your information. So we get to the URL and we talk about domain. Why is domain important? Now, a domain, or if we get a little more into the info literacy part of it, a domain will have different levels. So we start with the top level domain, or the TLD. And it's important because it would give you a hint as to the credibility of the website. It will also direct you as to where it may be located, and then it will let you know that it is coming from a particular country. So this is how we get to .ce, .uk, .us, .eu. EU would be Europe, US, United States, UK, United Kingdom, and CA here is Canada. So what are some of the web pages that will give you the country, domain, or destination? Well, it might be that you are looking for information on how you apply for a visa, and so if you type Canadian visa, or if you type visa, you may very well find your search engine results page pointing you to the first page, or the content of those pages bearing .ca for applying for a visa in Canada, .uk applying for a visa in the UK, and etc. with the US and EU. So this is why it's important to understand or refer to your notes and appreciate the importance of the URL. So top level domain, there are different levels, as I said, but the key parts in this particular presentation is what happens after that dot, where there is .com, .org, .net, .info, .edu, .gov. So when I was doing my bachelor's program, we were then told that .org was reliable. We were told that you should perhaps lean more towards sourcing information from .gov and .org. But now .org really is such a common website, and really it is, even though it's usually associated with non-profit organizations, therefore the information should be credible, it is open to purchase by anyone, and again, anyone can create a web page and place .org and have you believe that the information is credible. So again, application of critical thinking skills is so important it's an important guide for evaluating information. Going back to .info, .net, and .com remain as domains that are open for purchase by anyone, and by anyone means any person can put information on the internet believing that they are helping a worthy cause. Now it may be just for general knowledge that a person is writing about domestic abuse, or perhaps if you start reading a blog or you start reading that web page on domestic abuse, you would notice that the person is perhaps a champion for victims of domestic abuse, and so the information is worthy, you can use it, but for academic purposes, you would want to lean more towards a controlled page. And that is where .edu, .gov, and by extension, the country destination URLs or domains come in handy. So, particularly with .edu, you can lean towards using that information. But remember, the information still has to be evaluated. The World Wide Web is really a great place to start doing research, because the minute you get the results of your search, you can be directed to a number of places, and the exercise can be so engaging that you spend more time than you even catered for. Just keep in mind that the use of the World Wide Web should be measured by constant evaluation and a constant questioning of the motivation for putting the information out there on the internet. Again, it comes in all forms, and I'm also going to caution against just using the internet or just using the World Wide Web or primarily using it for research. Because what I found students tend to do is, because the information is there, it's digital and it's accessible, that they disregard the laws of plagiarism and go about copying and pasting. That is for another presentation. But as I said, before we get into going about the research process, before we get into the different aspects and the different steps in research, I felt it was necessary to talk about using the World Wide Web as a reminder, and then as an appeal to students to please, again, be cautious when accessing information online. Keep a history of your search. Apply the standards of evaluated information. Apply that to your online activity. And again, I accept that it is inevitable, but if we are talking academic excellence, then we must always be cautious. We must always be evaluative of what we access via the internet. So again, all the best, and until we meet again, enjoy doing your search and enjoy doing research.